Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of December 18th through the 24th. And to me, three different energies this week, and the main one is Mercury retrograde's inner journey, and it stretches out over the week. And then there's a couple interesting aspects to Uranus by Mars and Venus midweek, and then late in the week the Sun goes into Capricorn as we have our solstice time. So those are the three energies I want to talk about this week. First off, I just want to remind you all the Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week, and if you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, please become a follower, and you'll get and if you turn your notifications on, YouTube will let you know whenever I post the blog, and which is usually, of course, Sunday, Monday. So it'd be great to get signed on there and you listening regularly. And this has been a podcast long before it was a video channel, so it's also still available on all kinds of podcasts. And all you got to do is look up Astrological Winds channel on your favorite podcast. You'll probably find it there. If not, just check another one out. It's about 20 of them that pick it up. Also, Astrological Winds channel has an Instagram page, and if you have an Instagram account, maybe you'd like to become a follower of that too. I not only post the link there every week, but also post additional information, usually like on certain days where I think, there might be some interesting astrology stuff going on with the moon or something that I don't mention on the weekly. So, and that's always in comment form, so it's not an audio or video type of thing. You can just read it real quick within a few seconds. Also, I do post the link on my Facebook account, and you can friend me there. It's private, Matthew with 2 T's, then Lawton, L-A-U-T-E-N. And then now, just like I mentioned last week, you can always find the link also on my website, and that is astrologicalwinds.com, all one word, and no channel on that part. So yeah, you can check the website out when you get a chance, and just got it back up. I will be adding more content. In fact, I may add some content at the end of this week, and I'll talk about that at the end of the blog here. And the best way you guys can support me is it's a free service. So if you can pass the link on to somebody else, even if you've done that before, I'd really appreciate that. That gets the blog to grow in a very natural way, and people can decide whether they want to follow it or not. And I really do appreciate that. If you do want to give some kind of donation, I also appreciate any amount that you can give. It does cost me a little money to put the blog out, and my Venmo handle is at the symbol A with the circle, and then it's Matthew, once again with a capital M and 2 T's, and then there's a hyphen up in the middle, not at the bottom, and then it's capital L-A-U-T-E-N at Matthew-Lawton. Also, the best way, though, that you can help me on that level is if you ever need a reading, or if someone else needs a professional astrology reading, please get in touch with me. You can check my website out for that, or you can email me directly at matthe823@gmail.com. Okay, like I said, to me, the main thing this week is really Mercury's inner journey. And, remember when Mercury is retrograde, Mercury's about the mind and the intellect, and, that's what we really value very highly in our society and in the past couple thousand years at least. And therefore, when it's being affected in this retrograde motion, when things aren't going normally out there in the way our mind normally has things going, that's where we can really have that effect of like, oh, a lot of things seem to be off in my real world, and that's because Mercury has a lot to do motion, our movement, our travel, our thoughts, our ideas, so many different things that have to do that in our everyday life. So when it's going retrograde and the value that we put on the mind, it really can affect us. And really the most natural thing to do is to go inside during those 3 weeks of retrograde every 3 or 4 months and review what has been going on in the information and the real world stuff you've inputted in the last 3 months. So this is the time when we interiorize, where we can get contemplative, where we can chew it over in our mind and do a reset that first has to start inside. It's like setting an intention. It's like visualizing what you want to be. And that's what this week is going to really be all about. Mercury, there's going to be 4 significant things spread out over the week that, Mercury retrograde is going to do. And I think it's just going to be the story of a lot of that information. And the first thing is right away on Monday when it gets the second hit of the trine to Jupiter, which is also retrograde, but slowing down, getting ready to station direct on the 30th, right around the same time that Mercury goes direct. So very interesting there that they're tying together. And like I talked about that new moon last week in Sagittarius, and that, Jupiter was the ruler of that, and that Mercury was trining Jupiter at the time, and that the energy was very similar to that new moon, or congruent. It could work well with that new moon, and we're still in that new moon cycle. The moon is still waxing up towards the full moon this week, so we're within that energy of that new moon, and this kind of brings it back. The Mercury trine Jupiter brings that energy back to us, and this is when we can take in more on any subject matter that we're really interested in, to delve deeply into that energy, to what I would say almost quietly study would be a really good way to use this energy at the beginning of the week, of a lot of these ideas that we may be starting to see inside that are bringing us a wider scope, a wider vision, and a place we want to go to in the future, like an ambition almost in the mind, and a willingness to take in any kind of input right now, to not block any possibility of where information that can be helpful to you could come from right now. So, and once again, I think this is the ability, because of being, we can, it's about pushing expansion and personal growth. So we're naturally more tolerant just on that level because of that, So yeah, so I mean, to me, this is a perfect time to chew over this stuff inside, contemplate this stuff inside, start to visualize how we're going to use this energy and how we can bring it out. And a lot of this, once again, can be inputted towards your business world stuff. Mercury and Jupiter work really good with creating a new business world business plan, like how you're going to take on the future in the business that you're in, the businesses that you're in, and integrate a lot of this new information into the approaches that you take. So I think it's a really, it's a really great way to start this week, is to kind of taking that energy now that it's the second retrograde hit of this trine, and really contemplating it inside. So that's really the seeding time on an ideational level. It's really, even though you're not going out there and executing the plan yet during Mercury retrograde, it is a great seeding time for that. And then as the week goes on on Thursday, actually, I think it's, yes, Thursday is when Mercury retrograde will have the second hit to Saturn on a sextile. And this is when, we can really integrate this stuff now inside. We can be self-critical in a constructive way. We can, be like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to have to do to make this work. We have a really sharp and clear mind, and therefore can see the details that we need to work on. And we can be very focused on that kind of energy. We can, and once again, like, taking those ideas of the Mercury Jupiter and using them to impact what we actually are doing in the real world, okay? To kind of take that energy and send it out. And another thing too is this is another time the sun, where Mercury is sextiling Saturn, that where we can look to others who have maybe more experience than us, others that maybe have the wisdom or the knowledge that we need to get those details that we want, to get that plan moving forward, to integrate those ideas. So it's a time when I really think we can get a lot of the plan worked out too, at least in our mind, like how we're going to do this, and seek out the additional information that we need. It's like a mental comb almost, of pushing, really looking through things in a fine-toothed way and saying, okay, how does this fit into reality? How does this, how am I actually going to execute this? And then by Friday, we have the Sun and Mercury in their inferior conjunction, their second conjunction of one another. And the inferior conjunction is always the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde cycle, the weeks that it's in, and where it really apexes inside and is mainly internalized. And that's why that's why even communications aren't as well, because people are doing more self-talk in the middle of that Mercury retrograde period, and it's very subjective. Like Mercury Sun conjunctions are subjective as they are, but when it's the inferior one, it's super subjective. It's subjective squared. So it can be very, very difficult to communicate, or it feels like it's very, very difficult to communicate with others the important concerns that we have. But that's because they're so subjective. That's because there's so much about our own experiences and the way we live and the things that have happened to us. Mercury is very related to the past too. So so it's not easy for other people to have the perspective we have, and therefore that can really, shut down communication ability in an effective way anyway. Like, you can still communicate, but it can be very subjective. I think you kind of lose people quickly, and you can get trivial too. You can, the things that are important to you may not actually be that important, in the world or with others, or, it's just something that you're inflating over that. But at the same time, once again, this is like the planting of the seed thing. It fits so much into that new moon last week. This is the time when the seed has just been put into the ground, into the mind in this case. And so there's nowhere but up to go, this is only the potential is there, but we can see that potential. We can see that subjectively, so we can work towards making some kind of plan. We do have a sharp mind, like I said, that can see how we can operate this, how we can integrate this into our lives, how we can, take this and move it forward. But like, once again, the Mercury retro, you know, it's going to be a little bit of a while before it happens. Now, right as all that ends, right at the end of the week, Mercury is also going to slip back into Sagittarius. That's going to be on Friday, actually. I mentioned that a couple times already in the blog, that Mercury would go back into Sag during this retrograde period. And that's going to shift the energy for sure, the way the whole Mercury retrograde goes, the rest of it, and then for the next month, because Mercury will be in Sagittarius once it goes direct on New Year's Day. It will spend the next 2 weeks in Sagittarius again. So we're looking at, you know, close to, you know, 3 to 4 weeks of Mercury in Sagittarius again. And immediately, I think what we're going to see in the Mercury retrograde is the things that now are going to slow things down in all those areas that Mercury retrograde affects is going to be like things that details weren't taken care of. You know, when the Sag Mercury comes together, Mercury gets in a very weakened position traditionally. It's in detriment there, and it's all about overlooking the details of things. And that might not even be something that we, you know, the way Mercury retrograde functions, there might not be anything we can do to change that ourselves. If we are involved in one of those Mercury activities like travel, where we're relying on other people and the world to work our way, you know, it's just could throw this wrench in of like, oh, well, this detail wasn't looked at, you know, and now the effect of that is some kind of delay or snafu or something like that. You know, as far as communication goes, when Mercury goes back into Sag, we can be very blunt with our words. And that may affect our communications again by people shutting down to hearing actually what we're saying. You know, when, you know, they're not, you know, taking it in, they're actually could get even defensive about it, because the Mercury in Sag can be very pushy, preachy kind of energy at times. So an interesting inner journey for Mercury this week, and in the Mercury retrograde cycle this week. And I really think that's the main energy of this week. Now, in the middle of the week, on Wednesday and Thursday, both Venus and Mars are going to hit Uranus. And Venus is in the stronger aspect. It's opposite Uranus on Wednesday. The very next day, Mars quincunxes Uranus. So, you know, what Venus and Uranus do is bring surprises to relationships. And in an opposition, it's usually close relationships, partnerships. There's an instability that's inherent in that energy. And therefore, like, older relationships and relationships that are unstable can get very upsetting and unpredictable under this. They can be triggering emotionally. Remember, Venus has a connection to our emotions too. So what it can do is drive us away from people who we feel that way about, who we feel like, you know, this is the same old story. I don't want to get sucked into this routine with this person again. You know, I'm upset about some of the things they said or did, whatever it may be. And so there's a separation kind of energy, a rebellious kind of energy that actually still wants relationship, you know, the Venus part, but now it wants something new and different, something that's going to break it out of that ordinary, something that's exciting and stimulating. So it can be, you know, good for new relationships. It's, you know, on a romantic sexual level, it can be very flirtatious, you know, and many times it's, you know, these instantaneous connections, but a lot of times they don't last a long time, but they can be very stimulating while they're going on and very exciting, and you may pick up some new energy off of that, but it's, it's a thing where we're really seeking out new experiences, new things to do. And if we are in old relationships, that's what we need to feed into that, to make them feel alive still, is to do something different, do something different, and, something that's exciting. Now, the Mars quincunx Uranus the very next day can make us very, very impatient, and with our actions and not well thought out, then we can get ourselves into some very awkward situations. We can take some risky behaviors. We can push breaking up that routine too far. And see, the thing is, this is going to work together too with the Venus part. It's probably Mars is going to react to the Venus disquietude of the Venus-Uranus opposition, so that rebellious energy may impulsively have us act out in some way. And, this can be the energy of separation, it can be very rebellious, it can be very disruptive and upsetting, to people, depending on what end of it you're on. Like, if you're on the receiving end of Mars-Uranus, it can be very upsetting. If you're the one pushing it, you have to be aware that you may not be being very aware of what you're doing, and you're creating explosive situations around you. This is, Mars-Uranus quincunx is also very temperamental. It's the energy of having a little fit, basically. Of having, like, kind of like, I'm just, yelling and, just being very angry, or suddenly I'm just blowing up kind of energy. But it can also move things forward very, very quickly. But I think they're, it's going to be very tied in to the Venus-Pluto. So, like, if you're handling the Venus-Pluto well, by, like, doing things that are different and bringing things in that are new in different relationships, then the Mars-Uranus won't be as edgy, and it might be some exciting, new, stimulating things that happen very quickly to you. Now, by the end of the week, the Sun goes into Capricorn, and that's our solstice day, and that is on Thursday. And then right after that, a couple days after, no, it's actually it is Thursday. And actually right after that, the Sun will sextile Saturn, because it's right near. So they're really close, tied together too, because Saturn is the ruler of Cap, which is what the Sun goes into during the solstice. And it's the winter solstice up here in the northern hemisphere, and it's the summer solstice down in the southern hemisphere. And this is a time of the year that Capricorn energy comes in, is where we get really serious, about looking ahead, about what we want to do. It's all about our ambition, really, and things we want to achieve, Earth sign, in the physical world. So we build systems up that are hierarchical in nature to try to achieve what we want to do during this Cap time. And it's, and it is good, but, on that level, it's really good energy. It will start things up. Once again, it fits in very well with the seeding kind of energy of the last new moon, and even this Mercury retrograde period, because it's like, it's the beginning. It's where the, in the northern hemisphere, where the light turns around and starts to come back. So once again, very, very analogous to a time of seeding, but it's very much inside. It's about the potential. The Capricorn has all this wisdom and knowledge that it's built up and can rely upon. So now it's looking at, like, what's its next step? What's your plans for this next year coming up? And how do I discipline that? How do I create a system that's going to help me achieve what my ambitions are, what my goals are, that kind of thing, and use that energy to do that. And then what's interesting about that too is the sextile to Saturn is exactly backing that up. It's an opportunity to be very serious in your approach and to meet your duties, to be willing to sacrifice now what you want to do now and the things you're doing now for the future, for laying a strong foundation down, for having like a discipline about having concrete steps and ways of doing things and taking opportunities that you have now to create a stable kind of growth. And once again, too, similar to the Mercury sextile, the Mercury retrograde sextile Saturn, go out this week and getting advice, building up your knowledge base, your wisdom base, you know, finding people who are more experienced than you, and you know, and it also can set us up to be that person too. So like, you know, playing the roles of teacher and student is a lot about that Sun sextile Saturn, and also Mercury retrograde sextile Saturn, both of those things. But, you know, willing to work, willing to meet our duties and obligations, willing to deal with reality now, willing to sacrifice for the future, you know. So this is a week where there's a lot of that, you know, playing off the new moon, playing off the Mercury retro and the internal energy and the way it's hitting the things that it is hitting, and then the inferior conjunction around the same time as the Sun going into Cap and turning over the seasons and starting anew. So it's very, very potent time to impregnate the energy you want for the next year in the visions and ideas that you have. And they have to start as a visualization inside. They have to start as something you contemplate, you think about, you actively comb through, and then get those details working on it with the Saturn energy there. Get that energy working, get the Capricorn energy there. So yeah, that's what I've got for this week. I always like to look at the solstice chart set for Washington, D.C. to see what the United States next quarter and even next year will be reflected in. And that is something I will be doing. And I don't know if I'm going to do a video blog this time on that. I may have that set up as one of the new parts of my website where you can actually go and look at that as a written document on the site, as a written article, and that way you can look at the details and that. So, but just so y'all know, Virgo is rising in that chart, which means Mercury retrograde is the ruler of the chart for the U.S. this next quarter, at least, if not imprinted on the whole next year. So it's not, so that shows that, you know, and it's going to be, it shows that, you know, a lot of the things that we normally expect in the U.S., you know, are going to be off and awry for the next year. So I'll get into that in a lot more detail on that, in that article, and likely, like I said, I'll likely put it on the website, and I'll probably make some announcement about it so you'll know about it. But yeah, that's what I got for this week. And just remember, everyone, this is a free service, so I'd love you all to pay it forward now and pass it on to someone else that you haven't passed it on to already. And if you're interested in a reading, I am a professional astrologer. I've been one for 20 years. I was trained for 7 years prior to that, and I do natal birth chart readings. I do predictive readings where we look at your next year, just like I looked at this week ahead for the whole world. Do it personally for you. It's a great time to do it right around your birthday as a birthday gift to yourself. Do children's charts, relationship charts, fixed star readings for deeper soul purpose, relocation, astrolocality type charts if you're looking to move, specific questions, elections for the best timing of things, all that kind of stuff. And there's also beginner classes available that I have. If you have a group that you need a lecture, workshop, or mini readings, some kind of thing like that, all those things, you check out the website, astrologicalwinds.com, or you can email me directly at matthure823@gmail.com. One more time, matthure823@gmail.com. But yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it if you pass that on. Happy solstice, everyone. And next week, we do have a full moon coming up. Next week, it's at, I think, 5 degrees of Cancer, if I remember right. Yes, it's the day after Christmas. So the blog should be coming up on either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And then we'll have that full moon. And I know also we're going to get Jupiter goes direct next week, and so does Chiron. They both go direct, which I talked about in the monthly blog a couple of weeks back. But anyway, happy solstice, everyone. Happy holidays, and I will see you all next week.